Welcome to Birds of a Feather. This is your girl AJ, the Suburban Princess here, back with another pod. This time I decided not to do my anchor pod because I have to get a visual because my boy ERock is back and I'm bringing him back specifically for a reason because we got to talk about our birds and what's been going on this week because I've been
Yeah.
trying to work while highly being distracted with the election, the inauguration, and all that crap. So I kind of was confused as to what the final say was. So tell me honestly, what is your thoughts on this new coaching selection?
I'm very. I don't think there's ever been a more appropriate use of the word meh. I'm kind of meh on it. I wish I
Yeah.
could give you the a complete and thorough scouting report on Nick Sirianni.
Sirianni.
Nikki Sirianni from Indy. I wish I could give you a thorough scouting report on him. I don't know much about the guy.
Yeah.
Um, and I always preference my coaching takes on saying that, look, once upon a time, I thought Andy Reid was all washed up, and I thought Chip Kelly was going to revolutionize the league, and I thought that Doug Peterson was the worst hire the Eagles could have made. So with that being said, we all kind of got to give this guy a chance. Like
Mm-hmm.
he's wearing our colors, he's in the organization now, so we have to be rooting for him to succeed. But if I'm to take the green goggles off and take kind of a stand back fan perspective on it, this just reeks of a yes man hire. This just reeks of a Howie Roseman. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
I can still have the same amount of control that I had with Doug Peterson and still have the same amount of control that Chip Kelly tried to rip away from me. I can still control the draft and the personnel and the contracts and everything. And Jeffrey Lurie and Howie, I mean, this is clear cut that it's a fix Wentz situation, that they are bringing in a coach to do nothing but fix the quarterback in which they have so much invested in.
Mm-hmm.
Now, does that make them wrong? I don't think it makes them wrong. I mean, they have so much dumped into this guy, time, equity, emotional. They're all in.
Mm-hmm.
So this is just another layer down the rabbit hole of this organization is Carson Wentz. Period. As of right now.
Mm-hmm.
So we got to bring in a guy who's gonna fix them. I unfortunately think a lot of better qualified candidates got discounted, including our existing head coach last year, because they
Mm-hmm.
were not sold on Wentz. Plain and
Mm-hmm.
simple.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I find that it's very hard not to root for. Well, okay, I'm gonna be real. I was kind of like, I don't care either. But my thing was at this point, the way it had been going, and the way that, and I'm trying not to be dissuaded with how the press and how Twitter and how all the national experts look at Wentz, because Lord knows he hasn't said anything. So I don't know why he's suddenly being labeled a brat or a baby when he hasn't really even made a public statement since he last started. At this point, I feel like I'm kind of learning how they do this when there's a major transition that needs to be happening in an organization. And as a fan, when you grew up hearing my dad always curse at the Eagles, always say like they don't know what the freak they're doing. Da, da, da. Now that Doug has been fired, I wasn't exactly even happy about that as much as I was just like, well, if that is part of the problem, then okay, good. But I was more happy for Doug in the sense too, because who wants to be a puppet? Especially if you wanted to give the illusion that you had some kind of control as a coach. But that pretty much went out the window the previous season when they fired Grow and the other coordinator, and that kind of made
Exactly.
Doug look stupid because right after he
Yep.
just said they were going to stay. So that whole wrinkle came out, and then after this season, it just seemed like it was okay to start rehashing the constant Carson's this, Carson's that crap once he got benched. And I'm like,
Mm.
oh, so now we got the flapping lips again. So now all these little rumors are coming out. And so now I'm like, this isn't good. Because if there's one thing I reiterated, even with a previous pod when I was talking to Kelly, I was telling her that it's funny how that stuff happens once the quarterback starts becoming the seat of malcontent, I guess, on the team when he's not performing like he normally does. Yet everybody has amnesia over the past couple of years. Like every year they've come back on some kind of level. And Wentz was either part of it or he was on the sidelines watching. So at some point, Wentz had something to do with some of the success that they've had thus far with him. So I don't think it's all totally on Wentz. What makes me mad is not knowing what direction to go by if you're listening to every expert and every beat writer. You know,
Mm.
the media has a way of trying to control how the fans react. And I'm trying to learn not to react too soon. I just know that if someone like Deuce really wasn't that qualified, then he should have probably looked elsewhere years ago, if that was the case, you know.
Yeah, and my heart kind of breaks for Deuce, and I was really, on the hashtag Deuce Caboose, I was really rooting for Deuce because
Same.
when even when I was on the podcast, I was a big proponent of I like coaching structures
Mm-hmm.
where the head coach manages the game.
Mm-hmm.
Like he can have a specialty in offense or defense, but when a head coach actually manages the game, I felt like that was a shortcoming of Doug Peterson.
Yeah.
And I take a look
Absolutely.
at around the league. I take a look at, guys like Harbaugh down in Baltimore, who was a former special teams coach. He got a
Right.
head coaching gig without ever calling any plays. Didn't need to. He was a leader of men and he managed the game and trusted his offensive and defensive coordinators to run the game plan.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say Bill Belichick, but I think Bill Belichick's kind of the exception, not the rule. He
Yeah.
has more of a defensive background, but he's there managing. You always see him jotting notes down, but he
Mm-hmm.
always could. Um, Mike Tomlin's another one,
Love Mike
even
Tomlin.
to a lesser extent, but a guy on the come up,
Yeah.
Joe Judge, up there in New York. He's on the
Mm-hmm.
come up. He never had any sort of play call. He was a special teams guy, just like Harbaugh.
Mm-hmm.
So when I looked at Deuce and I looked at all the players vouching for him, whether it be former teammates,
Mm-hmm.
former players, or you heard the report that current players were texting Howie and Jeff, like, listen, let Deuce be the guy. I have a hard time believing that Deuce couldn't fill that head coaching role if he was going to have an offensive and defensive coordinator. I just have a
Mm-hmm.
hard time, but I'm having a hard time believing that Nick Sirianni was more qualified than Deuce Staley,
Mm-hmm.
especially with the unique situation that the Philadelphia Eagles are. Listen, this isn't a market for anybody just at face value.
Mm-hmm.
Just at face value. This city, this market, this fan base isn't for everybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
But especially with the power structure of Howie Roseman, especially with the ownership style of Jeffrey Lurie, especially with the roster that you currently constructed, Deuce Staley was a guy who outlived Andy, who outlived Chip, who outlived Doug,
Mm-hmm.
and who I kind of saw as the natural counter to Howie Roseman. Well, apparently, Deuce Staley wasn't sold on Carson Wentz being the guy, and that was a prerequisite.
Yeah.
Carson had you were going to fix Carson Wentz. If Carson
Right.
Wentz wasn't your guy, you were out, and that's why Doug Peterson lost his job.
Gotcha.
Think about it. Think about a current head coach that has to interview for his job again.
Right.
That doesn't happen. And
Right.
as far as Carson Wentz goes, look, I know there's a lot of media stuff out there. There's a lot of reports out there. There's a lot of leaking out there. We don't know whether it's coming from Alshon one year or coming from Howie the next year. We don't know where it's coming from. But what I do know is that if this was a different organization and we were looking at the situation, we would all be saying to ourselves, where there's smoke, there's fire.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Because it when stuff comes out year after year after year, and it's all maybe not the same song, but all the songs are in the same key.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I got you.
You gotta kind of assume that okay, there's something to be there, and especially when they're burning through offensive coordinators and they're burning through quarterbacks coach, and this guy's coaching them too hard, this guy's coaching them too soft, this guy's his buddy, this guy's too mean to him, so on and so forth. It leaves me like I don't want to believe. I don't want to sound like a Trumpster here and be like, oh, the mainstream media is lying to us.
Yeah.
But at the same token, I'm sitting here scratching my head, being like, looking around the rest of the league and what I know of the history of the rest of the league, going, I don't really remember this with anybody else. You know what I mean? I'm struggling to think of an example of another quarterback in the NFL who consistently has been scrutinized in the same key year after year after year, who's burning through coaches. It's weird.
Yeah,
Strange.
I mean, okay, I get that he's an A-type personality. That's been clear. And I'm sure he's selfish. I was convinced after this season, especially, that him and Doug must have been bumping heads at some point, because it just seemed like simple wins were hard to come by with this team, and it shouldn't
Mhm.
be any different because they had they had more weapons than they did the previous season. Even with all the O-line issues, it's like there were still possibilities of them winning almost every game. So it got to a point where it started to hit me. I'm like, maybe it's the philosophy, maybe they're just not seeing the end of the road together, like on the same plane. And so to me, when Doug got fired, it kind of made sense because they said, well, the report was that he was kind of feeling at peace about the decision, which to me meant that he was willing to probably try looking at Jalen, as a starter. I personally didn't like the idea of a competition anymore because I'm just like, you shouldn't be in a competition with a fifth year quarterback. You know what I mean? At this point, if you still want to
No,
test to see if he's better,
no,
what is the point of that? Then you already made your decision. So then I was in my head going, well, Carson should just bounce. Like Carson should just go somewhere where he feels he can start over. I thought
they're
that
fine.
was pretty much I know the salary cap and all that crap, but in NFL they say that crap, but then people make stuff work, if they really want the person to leave. But I do think there obviously is a learning curve that is clearly not getting through to Carson. And I don't know if that's coming from a background of a school that really didn't have that much competition for him to excel in. So maybe he doesn't understand that you do need to change your mindset at some point in the NFL. So it could, I don't think he's a golden boy, but I'm also not one of these people trying to kill him like he never did anything for the organization. Like, let's stop trying to act like he was there and it was a oops. We just happened to get
Yeah,
the Super Bowl when he was here.
no, you're 100% right, and I try to I try to look at both best case and worst case scenario at the same time. The best case scenario is this guy comes in, unlocks the mind of Wentz, gets his confidence back.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe everybody stays healthy. Going into last year on paper, that was one of the best lines in the
Yep.
NFL.
Yep.
So okay, maybe the offensive line stays healthy, or they make some additions. Maybe Malata, blossomed into that starting left tackle, and we don't got to worry about the Andre Dillard experiment so much. And maybe they find another center because who knows what's going to happen with Kelsey, and
Kelsey, right? Yeah.
Brooks comes back, and Lane, just had surgery right before
Right.
the season, and maybe he's healthy. Say him out, so on and so forth, and maybe all of a sudden Carson Wentz stops hearing those ghosts and those footsteps, and stops making poor decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe
Stops
he unlocks
hesitating because I think
stops
hesitating was a big
hesitating,
thing.
holding
Yeah.
on to the ball too. I mean,
Yep.
there's a laundry
Yep.
list of grievances. We can air the
Mm-hmm.
grievances when it comes to Carson Wentz's play over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he unlocks all that stuff, and the combination of a new coach, new better system, better quarterback coaching, and healthy roster. Maybe it happened, but then it's just fair to look at the flip side. And the flip side, my biggest fear is, okay, if we were to reset, kind of like the way I wanted the organization to reset. Howie gone, Doug gone, Carson
Mm-hmm.
gone, blow it up, start over again, start fresh.
Mm-hmm.
If we looked at that and we hit the reset button and we thought, okay, at best, this organization is going to take 2 years to kind of get back to where it's supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
If you're married to the quarterback financially and you're all in on the quarterback, and then you bring in head coach as a pair to said quarterback and it doesn't work, or Carson can't be fixed,
Mm-hmm.
Carson just isn't the guy.
Right.
Maybe they butt heads. Maybe Carson has just regressed and he is what he is at this point. There's
Right.
more
Right.
evidence to point to this than it is that 2017 season. Now all
Right.
of a sudden you got to get rid of Wentz and the head coach, and now you're 2 years behind the 2 years that you should have been, and now we're looking at like 4 years
4 or 5
down the
years.
rabbit hole.
Yeah. Yep. That's where I feel
So
too. Yep.
so what does the organization do? Do they push all in? Do they fold? Do they that's they made their decision.
To me, the issue was the salary cap. So to me, it was a kind of a given to finally just shed your shed the burden of having Howie Roseman be there anymore, because I felt like Howie was kind of the problem in the sense that if he has more control than we've known him to have, and he was the reason why there was a JJ Arcega-Whiteside up in there, and there was a couple bad decisions last minute free agents that didn't work like it did for the Super Bowl, then to me that's your caper. I don't care what worked for 2017 because like we said, we're all trying to get past the Super Bowl because now that's not helping
Hmm.
your case anymore, because at this point you have to look back. That was a totally different squad. You only have maybe like less than a handful of people left from that team. So at the end of the day, do you have to change philosophy? Is this John Dorsey guy there to kind of be the back door for Howie if he messes it up again. I mean, the draft coming to me, I'm not even excited about it anymore after last year because I think that was the beginning of the end to me of having faith in this team knowing how to select talent, you know? So I don't even care where they are in the draft at this point. If they decide to finally pay attention to the cornerback issue, then God bless you, because Lord knows that's a start. That's an issue too. That whole defensive D back core is an issue.
Well, they've put themselves in a position where there are so many holes on this team. And that's why it was so important for them to tank the last game, to lose the last game,
Yeah.
right? Because if they won, they were drafting ninth.
Right.
Okay. They lost. Now they're drafting sixth. Let's run down the needs just at face value. You mentioned the cornerback first and foremost. McLeod just bust up his ACL. We're going to need a safety. We needed a safety regardless, but let's say
Regardless, yeah.
cornerback, safety, linebackers, multiple of which, well, let's just pick one for argument's sake. Defensive end, because I'm not convinced Derek Barnett's the guy, and Brandon Graham's a little long in the tooth. So there's
Mm-hmm.
four needs right there. And the
Mm-hmm.
fifth one is the glaring one on offense, and that's wide receiver. So you have five needs. Assuming Trevor Lawrence goes and pick one, right? And no other quarterbacks get selected before then, which two quarterbacks might be selected before then.
Mm-hmm.
You got Trevor Lawrence, and then you've got five needs. So there you are at six.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you're going to have the opportunity to draft one of the top prospects at one of the top positions of need. It's
Mm-hmm.
just basic mathematics. If you were at 9, all of a sudden that gets pushed back. You maybe not get a top prospect at a position of need. They've put themselves in this position, and to circle back around to Jalen Hurts pick. Okay, well, if Doug Peterson had no say in that, that was a Howie Roseman pick. But if that was a Howie Roseman pick, why then are they going all in on Wentz? And it just, a lot of this shit just makes
Yeah.
zero sense whatsoever.
That's my
And
thing. That's uneven. To me, that whole process to me seemed like
yeah,
again, that was a miscommunication again. And I'm just like, y'all are having too much of this in such a
mm,
short span of a year for y'all to not
yeah,
knowing where you're going, you know?
yeah.
What is the miscommunication between Jeffrey Lurie trickling down to the actual team? Like there's a huge gap there. And I'm wondering when that happened, when that started. Was it always there? As a fan, it's confusing, and you don't know whether you can even trust your own organization to support your quarterback. So why did you sign him? Like, why didn't you just let him run out his rookie contract if you didn't think he was going to be the guy? You know, I
I,
just,
I, I, I can't explain why you let Nick Foles walk. I can't
mhm.
explain why let Nick Foles walk. Because you kind of got a miniature quarterback controversy, not a miniature. You got a major quarterback
Major.
controversy.
Yeah, it was major.
Let's not downplay. Don't allow myself to downplay it. I mean, it was a
Right.
major quarterback controversy, and Carson Wentz's confidence is rattled. So you let
Hmm.
Nick walk. You sign him to that big fat contract. You
Hmm.
take your draft picks. You dump him on offense. So you try supporting Carson Wentz, and then the very next year you go and draft a quarterback in the second round. Like you just manufactured another quarter. Which,
Hmm.
by the way, I thought Jalen Hurts when he was picked. Nothing against Jalen Hurts. I thought it was a really dumb pick. And after seeing that kid play, I think that kid's got a lot of potential.
Yeah, no, I couldn't hate on him. I'm not even gonna
Mm,
lie. Like watching him, I was like, it was refreshing to see somebody kind of know when to run and know when to throw the ball. His accuracy obviously is off at times, but it was refreshing to see that win at home, versus the Saints.
mm.
Um, yeah, it was actually kind of less stressful to watch. I don't know if to me it's really important too if your coaching staff is on the same level. And I think the changes they had in the last 2 seasons to me is really what screwed up Carson's head to me, because I think what he chose to do as opposed to what he should have done became really apparent this past season than any other season. Because if they could come back and win 4 in a row at the end of that season before he had that
Yeah.
concussion, they probably would have went another round. Do you know what I mean? So something changed in philosophy, and between obviously the COVID messing up obviously all the practice time they could have had physically together, I think that somewhere along the line maybe Carson got a little too candid. I mean, a little too casual, and thought, there's a lot of stuff. And Doug said that even in his presser that there were a lot of voices and stuff. So to me, as a coach, you should have managed that earlier. If you felt there were too many, hands in the cookie jar or whatever, you should have been like, stop, and maybe that's why he never got an OC, because he thought he could handle it. And it was like, but you really can't, you know? I don't think that people are 100% honest with each other a lot on this organization. I feel like there's too many nice people, too many yes men. And I feel like there's a point where you're just going to have to be like, yo, if you want to go young, just make sure you don't blow anything up his butt. You know, you don't want Nick walking into a sepulcher and be like, you know, him calling Frank Reich, like, I thought you told me that this was kind of an open door policy. You know, like, what's going on here?
Yeah,
What is he walking into?
you have to imagine that, Frank Reich and Nick had those conversations, and Frank Reich signed off on it.
Mm-hmm.
Vouch not only for the coach going to Philadelphia, but vouch for Philadelphia to be a destination. You got to, I mean, how could they not have those conversations? Um, but going back to how do you feel about it? Meh. I don't. And going back to what you said, I don't really trust the organization to make the correct decision. Um, Again, my biggest fear is that we'll revisit this in 2 years and go, Carson wasn't the guy, and now we're stuck
Mm-hmm.
with this guy who's just a yes man
Mm-hmm.
for the second floor of the NovaCare complex, and now we got to, and then Howie Roseman to save his own skin, because I don't know if you're a Game of Thrones person, but he just seems
Mm-hmm.
like Littlefinger at this point, just whispering
I kept
people's
hearing
ears
that comparison.
and
Yeah.
trying to lie and manipulate to get his
Yeah.
way to the top, to get his way to the Iron Throne. I mean, it's just
Mm-hmm.
the similarities are striking.
It's sad to
Um,
me though that even like now, going back to when Orlando's scam trick was part of our team briefly, and he made the point about Howie being a slimy car salesman. I kind of side with that one point about him now, because I feel like whatever Howie was moving and shaking that worked that Super Bowl year, people aren't buying it anymore. And I don't think he could slick a slide his way into recovering the team with just some copy and paste crap, deals in the past year. I don't think it's working anymore.
that's why I just wish they would have just hit the reset button.
Yeah, me too. Because I was willing to do it. At first, I didn't want to think of the idea of Carson going so soon, because I felt like this was too fast, and I felt like the one moment he was actually upright for most of the season, everyone just kind of let it go because he got hurt again, and it was just like that wasn't even on him. That was just part of the game. He got hit, and what do you?
Mm.
So it was just like every time I felt like he had an opportunity, something went wrong. And so that's why I wasn't really ready to kick him to the curb, because I'm be like, you have to understand there's a lot of stuff going against him right now. Yeah, we all got frustrated. I mean, how many times everybody was tweeting like, throw the damn ball, all
Yeah.
last season.
And
So
I spoke with people inside the organization, not specifically about Carson Wentz, but
mhm.
you get kind of used to reading people and reading their reactions, and just candidly, just what they would say about Carson Wentz, and you're like, you're not really that high on the guy, are you?
Right.
So it just seemed like inside the organization there was Carson Wentz isn't the guy.
Hmm.
Set him. I mean, it's such a weird dynamic.
It
And the
is
only
weird.
way and the only way you get rid of a dynamic is if you just start it over again. And hey, maybe Nick comes in and figures the whole thing out. That's a big ask. That's a big
It's a big
ask.
ass, especially if he's already set in his ways. You know what I mean? Like, because at this point, Carson's 28. So
What ways could he possibly be set in? I mean, he wasn't calling plays out there in Indianapolis. That was Frank Reich's job.
mhm.
Certainly, he was a contributor and part of the offense, a quarterbacks coach and a wide receivers coach for the San Diego Chargers prior, an offensive quality control coach with Kansas City before Andy even got there. So, I mean, what ways could he possibly? I mean, he's young, got 39 years. I just turned 39, which, by the way, makes me question every life decision that I've ever made. Because instead of sitting here tweeting about the Eagles, I could have been coaching the Eagles, apparently, if I actually worked hard. 39 years old. I'm like, this fucking guy's 39 years old. Man, I just say no to drugs, kids. Just say no to drugs. Stay in school. You know what I mean?
Eric's like, what am I doing here?
What am I doing with my life? You got this Nick Sirianni guy. I could have been me. Could have been me.
I've been look. There's always that moment where you kind of just go, okay, who do I have to know to slip in here next year if this guy f's it up, because this is my time.
Well,
But
he came from a lineage of coaches, so I mean,
yeah,
good God, I wish him the best. Good luck, kiddo.
yeah, I just, look, I'm more like, the joke of it is that when at first I heard of it, every person that they've talked to, whether it be media or whether it be on the radio, they all say the same thing. I'd be like, who? I don't know this kid. So,
Yeah,
but to me, once I heard the Colts, and Frank Reich, I said, there we go. There's the link. So I didn't really have to really do too much research because in my head I was like, I get it. Like we can't. I guess we couldn't get Carson literally to the Colts. We brought the Colts to the Eagles. So
And I
um,
heard that analogy made, and I was like, that's what we did.
because that's the way. Because honestly,
That's
that's
what we
where
did.
everybody. I thought so. I said, so be it. I don't care what the salary cap is. I said they're going to find a way to get rid of Carson if it's really that bad. You know what I mean? I thought there was going to be Carson out the door saying, "All right, well, I can only give it you what I got. Peace." You
And
know?
that also speaks to, because I listen, general managers call. I mean, you would be, and I know this firsthand. General managers call for players you would never even think were on the trade block. There are people
Mm-hmm.
you wouldn't even think, but that's their job, to
Right.
take phone calls.
Right.
And in my line of work, we have this thing called an FU bid. If you really don't want to do the work or something like that, you give an FU bid where you make the price so outrageously high that if you agree to it and say yes, I've got no choice but to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's no doubt in my mind that they were expecting calls about Carson, maybe making calls about Carson, and the interest maybe just wasn't on there, and they came down to the fact that, listen, we're kind of stuck with the kid.
Stuck with him, right? Yeah.
But that being said, they'll be taking calls about Hurts, 100%.
Oh yeah, I don't doubt it because at this point now, well, first of all, it's if there's one thing that was obvious about Hurts as soon as he started playing, the more you could tell he was getting more used to it. I said, this dude got just brought the swag back with the whole, you know, in his head, and I just
Yeah.
felt so. I called what did I call him? I called him Black Ice for the longest time because I was like, homie is smooth. Like you gotta admit, like he's just like he's just like, I'm Oklahoma. All right, I'm gonna just walk in here and be like, what you want to do next, play? Like like I just felt like he had just. I mean, girls. Well, me too. I can't lie. Like the first night when they were showing him, and then he did that motion with his tongue, and I just was like, that was a gif for the longest week because we were just like, look how long his tongue is, and then suddenly I was distracted. But then I was like, no, wait, because then the reality came of the last game of the year, and I was just like, see, this is what I'm talking about. Like 1 out of 3, as opposed to Carson and them coming back 4 games in a row, and Carson barely had anybody last season. So it's like you just kind of miss that, we're going to come back and we're going to come back strong kind of thing. And that just didn't happen. So it still convinced me, though, that we saw enough that people were like, I kind of like this dude. And I said, I kind of knew that was going to happen. So at this point now, and that's not even fair to compare the two, obviously, because Carson obviously is his own thing. And Jalen is clearly his own. When they drafted him, I thought it was weird because I even thought to myself, looking at him waiting to get drafted, I'm like, I'm sure he's even like, Philly? Like, all right, whatever. I didn't
But
really
he took
get.
it.
He took
But he
it.
took
Like,
it.
I mean, what are you gonna do? I mean, because at this point now, it's like you see Tua getting drafted. It's like, I just want to get drafted too. It's a whole process, but I don't know. This year, I'll tell you one thing: draft. I don't even care about it, honestly. I'm more like I want to see because I saw your post about the Vegas game, and I cracked up because I was just like, that would be a fun trip. But I said, until I know that we're officially okay to fly, which I'm sure is
Yeah.
coming soon at this point, that would be a nice little 4-day trip, I have to admit. So it's not like I'm not going to be thinking about it. So trust me. But
Yeah.
it's the
I
season
love Las
alone.
Vegas. I love Las Vegas.
I do too.
I visited that city probably, obviously New York and Philly are the two closest, but
Yeah.
outside of those two, it's been, one of my tattoo artists is out there.
Hmm.
Um, I don't want to say it's a home away from home, but it's a fun place to go.
It is fun, and there's certain times you should go down there. Especially, I know for when I went earlier in the week, and I'm like, yeah, it's not the same vibe as you go like Thursday to Friday, Thursday to Sunday. But I did have a lot and experience in those 3-4 short days I was there, and I was like, yeah, I see why everybody says everything stays in Vegas.
Yeah, three
So
three or 4 days in Vegas is a long time.
yeah, you're right. I
That's
mean, I had an extra
if
day. I
you
probably
stay
could have went
5 days, you're like, I gotta
Yeah,
get the
you're
fuck out of
right.
here. Yeah.
Right. By the fourth day, even my sister was like, you didn't need to stay that long. I'm like, yeah, I realized that, but whatever. I had to recover,
Yeah.
like
You need
I
a
was
break. You need a break. You need a vacation from Vegas.
from the vacation. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But yeah, so lastly, I want to tie into what do you think is the next step, I guess, for DC at this point, because now that what's his name stepped down, Schwartz stepped down. Who do you think most likely? Because it looks like from what I've read that it's probably going to be another Colts connection that will possibly be the new DC. So I'm thinking they're just taking all their secondhand people or whatever as the new
The, the
DC.
the best thing that Nick Sirianni could do is take a page out of the Doug Peterson playbook. It's really true. And Doug, so many voices in the room, too many voices, not the right assistant. Like when he first came to Philadelphia, he took Jim Schwartz, who was an experienced head coach with the Detroit Lions, more than experienced defensive coordinator, found success previously before that job in Buffalo, and he brought him and said, "Here, you're in charge of the defense. You co-coach the defense." He brought in Frank Reich. He brought in a series of young, not so much young, a blend of veteran minds and young, talented up and comers. And I think that coaching staff collectively, if we can point to two things that won them the Super Bowl, it was A, team chemistry, and B, the collective coaching staff, right?
Yep.
But just as happens with any coaching staff, and you're seeing it in the National Football League right now, is when you have success and you win a Super Bowl, or you have any sort of success in the playoffs, all of a sudden your coaching staff starts to get pilfered.
Yeah.
DiFilippo is now going here. Frank Reich is now going here. Boom, 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 boom. And I think that was the downward trend of Carson Wentz and Doug Peterson and the coaching staff and the quarterback coach relationship. If Nick Sirianni can do one thing that would really increase his chances of success here in Philadelphia, it would be go grab a Wade Phillips, a guy who's a veteran, who retired really, and now wants to come back, a guy who's universally respected by his peers and his players. The defense is yours, and then go and just try to build the best supporting staff. Because listen, Philadelphia is a lot to take in for a veteran coach, for a young, spry 39-year-old man, especially who's never been a head coach, never called plays, never been an offensive coordinator. He's got his work cut out for him.
Yeah,
he's got his work cut out for him.
Definitely
So build yourself that blend of veteran staff members and up and comers.
Gotcha. So what do we think that Kelsey is coming back? Yes or no? I say no.
If you're Kelsey, why would you?
Right. My point exactly.
Do you want to continue to break down your body on what is clearly a transition period, as Jeffrey Lurie clearly stated it was? This is a transition, but we're not trying to win now. If you're Jason Kelsey, you can do whatever you want. You've won the Super Bowl. You've achieved everything that you have to. You've made the money that you need to make. Why you got a young baby at home, beautiful baby. You got everything you could possibly want in life. Why at this point would you continue to take that abuse?
Yeah.
If he walked away, I wouldn't blame him.
If homie, sitting there breaking his elbow, but still playing in the same game, you know what I mean? And but playing amazingly. And he's so well regarded, even among, the most harshest of analysts, as far as being a Hall of Famer for the centers. At this point, like, you're right, I'd rather just ride off into the sunset. Why kill myself anymore?
And it's not even the sunset. I genuinely think he's found a home in Philadelphia, and he likes it here. He will forever be one of those legends that just he's our Bernie Perrant, just that personality, just that. And honestly, hey, you want a job? Any radio station, any TV station is going to pay you whatever they got to pay you. You know what I mean? There's no reason to leave, but there's also no reason to bust your ass anymore.
Right. You're right. You're right. With him and people like Chris Long and stuff, who've kind of, casually, but honestly, I love Chris Long's podcast. And even if Kelsey decides to not be, because I don't see him being that public type of a person, even if he wanted to even just be like whatever, what position is Connor and all them in? Because I know they're doing like scouting or something. Connor,
who knows now that Doug left, but the Eagles organization has always done a really good job. That's how Deuce got his start.
Yeah. So never know.
That's how a lot of players. Who was it? Deuce got his start. Greg Lewis got his start in coaching, just doing a lot of internships. There's a lot of opportunities for internship if he so chooses to do that. There's
Yeah.
Kelsey's got every option, and every option is going to be laid at his feet. He's not going to. He can do whatever his heart desires.
I mean, he's the most famous guy in Philly now, especially with not as only with the Super Bowl win, but the Super Bowl parade speech. I mean, if
Yeah.
anything, that's something to be remembered by, period, because that pretty much was the setup for everyone to remember who he was, because who's doing a parade speech in a freaking mummer's outfit? Like,
it was the best speech ever given.
Ever,
Point blank.
ever.
Point blank. I
Point
mean,
blank.
every Super Bowl speech, when they do like a comparison or a
Yeah.
top 10, and every Super Bowl speech in the NFL will forever be compared to Jason Kelsey's half-drunken tirade that I talked to Don Smolinski about. Nobody knew that was coming.
No, I could tell.
Knew that. Yeah,
I could tell because you saw them kind of nervous in the behind Doug or something, like, did you know he was gonna say all this? And they'd be like, oh. Yeah. I just love the reactions. To me, classic laughter, classic. The guys recording the other guys going like, "Yo, really?" Like, that whole moment was like, I remember laughing in my office because we had walked up to where they were coming down, and then we went back to work. And I remember sitting there laughing so loud in my cubicle. They were like, "What is so funny?" I'm like, "You're not listening to the ceremony." And oh my God, I was dying. But E, that's why I have to talk to you, because at this point I hadn't really given it that much thought, but I didn't realize like how there's still so much drama still yet to probably come out with this organization before even draft month. So I'm not looking forward to it, but I'm hoping at some point, once, if Carson does decide to finally speak before everything starts changing, that it comes off genuine. And we all know that Carson's very good at saying what's necessary, but I'd rather like to see him just a little bit more raw. I mean, because there's no need to impress anybody at this point. We've seen your good and your bad. So
I mean, it's clear that Carson Wentz, for better or for worse, has this organization figuratively by the balls.
Yeah, he does. He does. That's why part of the bitch part of me wants to be like, if I were you, I'd be like, I'm still leaving. Peace. Like, you know what I mean? Just to be a FU, to be like, the fact that y'all had to think about this with me is like, I'm out. But
watch the Eagles totally pull like just the most unexpected thing, and trade both Jalen and Carson on draft day and move up and get a quarterback, and just all of our heads just simultaneously, all of a sudden in Philadelphia, just hear it's not even a loud noise, just and that's the simultaneous head exploding of like 2 million people's heads just like
oh my God, it's just gonna be emojis left and right. Everyone's gonna be like, what the
watch them pull some sort of shit like that.
Something will happen. Like, I'll be mad because I even talked to my friend Eddie about it, and he was just like, they should just stay at 6. I'm like, watch them decide to go back and just try to grab more and end up screwing themselves out of a good pick in the first round. Like, whatever. Anyway, but thanks for joining me though, especially with Birds of a Feather. We all gonna be talking for a while, so I'm sure I'll be talking to Gail and all them soon too, because at this point we're all trying to cope without trying to act like we're not upset with what's really going on, and we don't know, and we hate not knowing. But I'm sure by the time the draft hits, we'll all be talking soon. But I appreciate you for be available, and yes, thanks for tuning in to Birds of a Feather. ERock will be on his IG. We love his moments when he just decides to take that camera and just vent, because we all need to do it.
And just sit in the car, hit the button, and just, okay, here we go.
I
got some thoughts. Here we go. I got some thoughts.
But I love you, man. We'll be talking soon, I'm sure. And until then, we'll be talking again. Birds of a Feather. We out. Take care.
All right, see you.
All right, baby. I'll see you soon.
All right, love you, honey.
Love you too.